Item 8H, we're going to have Eric Wenger come in and give us a presentation. This has to do with TIF 8
and Project 180.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, and we do have an update for you this morning on Project 180 as it relates to amending the budget, some revenue changes, and really just an update from the one that we gave just about a year ago as the status of the projects. I also want to give some thanks to Brent Bryant and to Mike Clark and also Shannon Cox as they've helped put a lot of this information together for us today, and of course we'll be available for questions at the end. When we look at Project 180, there's been a lot of tremendous success that we've seen in the past couple of months. A lot of streets have reopened. Our most recent reopening is Hudson Two-Way as of yesterday. So continue to push forward on Project 180, on the amenity zones and a lot of the work. And so some of the update that I have for you is going to show some drawings and some of the recent successes. But when we look at the presentation as a whole, I'm going to briefly go over the project history, the budget, the scope of work, and also the schedule. And again, we're going to have some changes to the budget that we're going to show on some more slides here in just a moment. Looking at the history, the project began in June of 2009, and there was an implementation agreement that really helped drive a lot of the projects that have been completed to date. There were several steering committees, and realizing that the project wasn't just streetscapes, but there was also work at the Mary Botanical Gardens and the Bicentennial Park that we discussed a little earlier today. There's a lot of early work that was done, especially to create a lot of citizen involvement and citizen activity. There was a traffic study that was completed in November of 2009. This is really what started the streetscape projects. There were also a lot of streetscape design elements that were discussed and agreed to just to make sure that we had a clean, uniform, and pedestrian-friendly downtown. This is a slide of some of those improvements, and a lot of these are being located throughout, so I think that these are familiar to most of you, but in the upper left, we obviously have some of the new lighting systems. We've got the new benches. We've got the new bike racks, which is the hooped items that you see in the lower left-hand corner, and also the new trash receptacles and cans. Some of those have also been designated for recycling. Some of the things that you're probably just getting ready to see, and there's one of these that's located on Main Street, just a little bit east of 420 West Main, is one of the destination markers. So this is one of those artistic elements that these are being placed into the concrete, into the sidewalks. These are about the size of a manhole cover. But as you look closely, and I know that this image doesn't do it justice, but there is a grid of Oklahoma City downtown, and you'll see on this one there is a silver marker that's located at a particular location. Around the outside edge is what was relevant in history to that specific site. And so these are going to be located throughout the downtown area, but a lot of those are now starting to be installed. Something that's a lot more visible is, of course, the new parking meters. So thanks to Rick Kane and Transit, they're working very quickly forward as we turn over streetscapes, completed parking, additional parallel parking that's downtown. You're seeing these new parking meters being installed very quickly. This is the typical section that we showed a couple of years ago, talking about what a cross-section of a street would look like. And again, just as a friendly reminder, we've got these new enhanced pedestrian zones, increasing pedestrian friendliness. We've got the use of bike lanes. Some of those are dedicated in the downtown area. Some of the others are like on sharrows, and so we'll see a combination of both. We see, of course, the advancement of on-street parking, the trees, and of course the storefront zones as well. This is Package 1 Streetscape. This is Reno, most familiar to all of us, but it's been completed for some time now. But again, we're seeing a lot of activity in this particular area, especially near the Mary Botanical Gardens. This is Streetscape Package 2. This is Harvey. Again, one of our more urban streetscapes, but again, using sharrows for bike pedestrian access on the sides. And again, we're still able to add a lot of the treed landscapes to the downtown area as well. We look at Package 3. This is Main Street Sidewalk and the median. Of course, this is just south of City Hall. But in the left-hand side, you'll see the use of a lot of pavers for some of the texture that we're creating in the downtown area so that it's not all concrete elements. Also, the introduction of a lot of medians in the streets to enhance landscaping and greening up the space. As we look at Package 4, of course, this is Sheridan median. We also have the Hudson during the Festival of the Arts. This is the area that we have now completed a two-way conversion all the way to 13th Street. So there's still a few stop signs that are out, but the streets have been painted with the new striping. That went active yesterday, and so I expect that we'll see a lot more use of that in the coming weeks. Streetscape Package 5 is the work that's currently underway. We do expect to complete this in its majority over the next few weeks and into the next month. There's the final panels of concrete that are being placed on Walker. We have a lot of the amenity zone work that's wrapping up as well, but this really is the last of the original work that was started just a year or so ago. We look at the Mary Botanical Gardens, and this moves on from just the discussion from Streetscapes. But again, we talked about beginning a lot of work with the Mary Gardens Foundation, improving programming of the park, enhancing it for visitors. There's been a wide range of use of the new children's garden, but of course there's also the dog release areas, the rentable spaces, the band shell, the restaurant, and also the water features. This is one of the water features on that left-hand side, and then of course I think one of our most active areas is the children's garden that you see here on the right. The ice rink is is ready to go. Obviously, it's been used for a number of weeks as a part of the Downtown in December events, and so we're seeing that used daily. Of course, it's very active in the evenings. This is a band shell that is on the right. The Bicentennial Park was also one of those projects that was included, and it's nearly complete. It's in the final punch list stages, and so if you were to look at that park today, you'll see that it's nearly in its completed form. But again, one of those goals was to focus its central connection between City Hall and the Civic Center. It has the grand lawn, the historic grand lawn with the stage, pavilions, a fountain, and of course it has a majority of updated landscaping and lighting. This is what that original concept plan looked like about a year ago when we started construction, and again, you'll see the grand lawn in the center. You'll see the sweeping elements that provide for a lot of artistic opportunities. They treat these as galleries, these sweeping areas. The Bicentennial Monument has been located in the upper left-hand portion of this drawing, just near the Civic Center. But again, with the new fountain, the stage, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity that's going to be attracted to this new park. On the left is a nighttime photo of that new water feature. This is that water feature that's up close to the front door of Civic Center. It is animated to music, and obviously it creates a nice atmosphere. On the right, you can see a lot of the completed landscaping before fall hit and into winter. So as we progress from the historical perspective of Project 180, I move into this slide, and this, of course, is a map of our downtown area. Everything that you see in blue is either a completed or nearly completed project. So this is packages 1 through 5, and we've made a tremendous amount of progress. We've also, at the lower center, the green area, that's the Mary Botanical Gardens. On the middle left, you'll see the green block as the Bicentennial Park. Now, we did not complete the City Hall lawn project. You recall that was an ad alternate to the Bicentennial project that we chose to look at in the future. So that's something that we'll talk about in just a moment, but a lot of work has been done on Project 180. When we speak about the next phase, we're looking at a series of projects: Streetscape Package 6, Streetscape Package 7, the Pedestrian Plaza, City Hall Lawn, and the McGee Center. As a part of the revenue, and a part of the item that you're considering today is adjustments to that revenue, we've developed, at least for this slide's purposes, 2 categories of those items. We've got the non-trust funds, the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust funds, the trust funds for the total funds available. You'll see the breakdown in the non-trust funds. It still is funded with the GO bond at about $39.5 million, Aquit funds for $11.7. Remembering that the utility has gone in when we have the streetscapes opened up. If there's an opportunity to replace water or sewer and enhance our infrastructure, that's being done in conjunction with Project 180. When we look at the other category, there are some CIP funds that are about $2.2 million. There's a $750,000 grant that was received for a portion of EK Gaylord. There's also a donation by Devon towards the Bicentennial Park that's included in that other category. We look at the trust funds. The majority of that, of course, is the Devon loan proceeds at $95 million, but there's also some TIF 8 funds as well, sales tax, and then also that other category that's made up of some interest and some other items. But the total funding available is $176 million. When we look at the budget, I'm actually going to start from the bottom and go up, but the budget that we proposed matches that revenue also at $176 million. But if you now draw your attention to the top of that slide, you'll see that there were the administrative projects. These would be the consulting contract for the Mary Botanical Gardens and the Streetscapes. That's at $21.6 million. If you look at the completed projects and the projects that are under construction, these would be the photographs that I showed you earlier with the gardens, the streetscapes, the Bicentennial Park, $118 million that's been expended. And then the projects that we'd like to put under design quickly is Package 6 at $13 million, Package 7 at $11.7 million, Pedestrian Plaza, City Hall Lawn, McGee Center, and then of course maintaining a program contingency for about $36 million in additional work. To describe those projects that are being proposed, McGee Center, this is an area that's located in the lower level of the Mary Botanical Gardens. The upper left photo shows that condition today. It was an element of the Gardens project that was not included in the original construction. On the lower right is some of those completed areas. Simply what we were proposing is that we go forward and finish out this lower level space that's public. There's restrooms, there's an elevator access, there's also some HVAC needs, some heating and cooling needs that need to be addressed. That project is one that, of course, we'd like to move forward on at about $350,000. The streetscapes for packages 6 and 7, similar streetscapes as we've seen in the past with the same amenity zones, using the same details, moving those forward. This is a rendering of what that might look like. There were some other renderings that we shared with the general public earlier, and this is a rendering of Walker Avenue of what it will look like when it's completed. But Streetscape 6 is $13 million, and Streetscape 7 is $11.7 million. The Pedestrian Plaza is an area that's bound on the upper side of this drawing, Park Avenue, on the left, Harvey Avenue, on the right, Robinson Avenue, and on the lower portion, you'll see the new Devon facility. Everything that you see in a orange or a green color is proposed as pedestrian improvements. This is an area that's currently owned by the Urban Renewal Authority. We're seeing a lot of activity in this space. We're recommending a starting point of this budget at $4 million. Now that's a total cost that would include all engineering, that would include all construction and all contingency. We don't have plans completed on this, so it's hard to describe what that might look like today. But that would be something that would come back before this council, as would any design project, to make presentations to have you have a better understanding of what that project might look like. As we look at the City Hall lawn project, this is the piece of the Bicentennial project that was not forwarded. I have shown the original rendering of City Hall lawn here. We would not anticipate completely removing all the landscaping from City Hall lawn. Obviously, this is a campus, or at least the City Hall site was one that was recently renovated with a lot of landscaping. But conceptually, there would be the idea that we could bring some of the elements across the street. So if you were to look at the left-hand side of this drawing, you can see some of the horizontal bands or the bars that are created there. Those would be very similar to what would be at the park. Obviously, as Jim mentioned earlier in the meeting, making sure that we renovate the fountain, that we upgrade the sidewalks, that we encourage ADA accessibility. Those would be our primary focus. And so I would take this as a starting point, but again, as a design that we would bring back to you for further consideration. It would not completely raise the City Hall site. We would use much of what's already here. That project is estimated at approximately $2.2 million. As we have done on Project 180 and as we presented last year, one of the things that we've included in the budget is project contingency to ensure that we can complete the projects as described. We're also including a program contingency. Every once in a while there is some unforeseens that do come up that a project can absorb, and we don't want to take away funding from other projects. And so we are proposing that we use the strategy of proceeding with both project level and program contingencies on all the projects. This is a map that shows the completed projects in blue again, but what I've added is the yellow and the brown. I think what you'll find with the yellow and the brown is that it's similar to the map that you might have seen about a year ago when we were talking about Package 6 and future projects. But with this revised budget, we can actually complete 6 and now actually declare a Package 7. 6 is the areas that are identified in yellow. Some of the strategy with the yellow, as I mentioned earlier, around E.K. Gaylord, there was a $750,000 grant that was received there. We really need to proceed with that quickly because there is a time constraint on expending those grant funds. In the upper right-hand side, you'll see the Sandridge campus around Kerr Avenue. They are already beginning work on the Kerr site, Sandridge site, and we'd like to align our project with theirs so that we can complete the streetscape with the Sandridge improvements. And so that's some of the reasoning behind why you see these projects going in the order that is being suggested. Now, we had a lot of lessons learned on the previous packages 1 through 5. One of the things that we learned is that it's not prudent to allow a contractor to go after all 10 blocks at once. And so what we would propose to you as a part of going forward with Package 6 and Package 7 is that we would adopt a 2 to 3 block construction concept where we would actually have the contractor put up concrete barricades. We'd return some of the separation between pedestrians and construction to allow ease of access in and out of businesses. Once a contractor finished a 2 or 3 block section, then they would be able to proceed in the next 2 or 3 blocks. And so we would expect this to be phased much tighter with a more stringent schedule something that we would have to work on very closely with the engineers and the contractors moving forward. The schedule for the projects, although I don't have completion dates, those would need to be determined. Here as we work with engineers and contractors again, we're confident on the McGee Center. That's a project that's very small. It's one that we're familiar with, but we could start that construction in the spring of 13. On Streetscape Package 6, our early indications are that we can complete the design in about 6 months and have that out to bid in the summer of 13. I would anticipate something on the order of magnitude 18 or 20 months to complete an individual streetscape package. But we're going to, again, have to closely phase those with the idea that we wouldn't take out parallel streets. We wouldn't take out a Walker and a Hudson at the same time. We need to work very closely to make sure that we're minimizing that impact to our downtown patrons. Pedestrian Plaza is one that we think we could move quickly forward and have that ready for bid in the fall of 13. You'll see Streetscape 7 not until winter. Again, part of the strategy there is to phase it with about a 6-month delay after Package 6. And then the last one is the City Hall lawn, and I know it may raise a question, why wait till spring of 14? I think most of you are familiar. We have a parking garage project that's going to go under construction this spring just south of City Hall. We don't want to have two contractors adjacent to each other at the same time, so we would purposely align the construction of a City Hall lawn project after the garage was substantially completed.
And just to go on to, just to further that point, it's probably anticipated that because of the tight site to build that parking garage, it's probably going to need a crane, and that crane base is probably going to be sitting in City Hall across the street just to accommodate to make that work. So we don't want to do parking or City Hall improvements and then have that impacted by the construction of the garage.
So as I wrap up and get ready for questions, I mean, we've taken a lot of time here over the past several months to make sure that we establish a budget. We've made sure that we worked through a lot of the questions on the revenue, and so the item I know that you're considering today is looking at both of those. We wanted to bring this presentation to share some of the good successes that we're starting to realize on Project 180. I think we have a very good plan as we get ready to want to move forward with your vote of confidence, and with that I can answer any questions that you might have.
All right, questions for Eric?
I have one, Eric, and you touched on it at the end. I guess it's, I'd ask you to elaborate just philosophically. It seems, and nothing personal, nobody's made more mistakes than I have, but we learn from some mistakes and we don't learn from others. And I'm just asking, as we go forward, if we were to do something in the future, what do you think about, or what were the consequences of trying to take on so many different streetscapes at the same time, both in terms of cost and economic development, economic impact to downtown? You touched on it, but I just ask you to elaborate as we go forward in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's several lessons learned in the early streetscape projects. I mean, those are the ones that have had the most impact to our driving public, our walking public, and our businesses. And I think as I proposed, as we look at the projects, even though they might expand across downtown, is that we complete them in much shorter segments. So impact the least, allow the contractors to focus the most on that 2 or 3 block section. There will be inconvenience. I mean, that's something that's going to be unavoidable, but we want to do a better job with that by creating that barrier between construction and the pedestrian, making sure that we've got that free flow of pedestrian outside of construction to businesses, although that block might be closed for traffic. But encourage signage, better signage, more public involvement, and at least as we go out and move forward, we get the schedule ready and we have a better idea of when we're going to start and finish, but coordinate that. But I think the bigger thing will be is that we can focus on smaller areas as opposed to larger areas, which will help with that concentration and that effort.
If I can add a couple things to that, Councilman. First of all, we did 5 streetscape projects that were fairly massive over a 3-year period. And now we're looking at doing a 2-year, or 2 projects over 2 years, so it's a lesser impact. But what complicated that were other projects going on at the same time we were doing those 5 streetscape projects. Sheridan was shut down for well over a year, maybe close to 2 years, to accommodate the construction of the Devon Tower. We had Robinson shut down to accommodate the construction that was added on to the side of the Chesapeake Arena. Sandridge has and still has Kerr shut down for a block or 2 on the south side of their property. There were some other construction projects. Kerr was shut down further to the east due to the construction of the level. And then because of the massive amount of utility relocation that we did to accommodate those 5 streetscape projects, sundry streets were shut down to get infrastructure in, utility infrastructure in, for those improvements. Trigen may have had to run a line, they're going to replace much, well, they needed to increase capacity, so they had a couple of other sidelines, or fiber optics needed to be brought in from around to tie into the stuff that we were doing with those 5 streetscape projects. So there were more utility relocations done as part of that. So there was just a lot going on. From the Project 180 standpoint, you look ahead and we're doing 2 streetscapes over 3 years. That appears to be manageable. But there are still other things going on. Sandridge is still doing things to their complex over there, which is going to impact traffic flow in that area. And we're going to start doing some things on MAPS 3 that are going to continue to impact, whether it's construction of the park, or whether it's beginning the convention center on down the line, or even building the boulevard. All of those are going to have continued impact on downtown Oklahoma City. And I know that sounds harsh that there's that much going on, but I would point out that we're very fortunate. There are very few cities that have this type of infrastructure activity going on in the downtown.
Absolutely, and I think that's part, in the years and decades, we may all be gone, but you could have another tower built, and you could have streets shut down for the construction. You could have a lot of the things you just outlined happen again, and somebody may want a similar kind of arrangement. I just hope that some of this is documented and passed on to future decision makers. The second I would ask is about EK Gaylord. The part outlined is right in front of the intermodal hub. We have a $750,000 federal grant. What is the nature of those improvements? What is the nature of that streetscape next to the intermodal hub, and is there anything else being done on Gaylord?
At this point, it's really just the streetscape portion. Earlier in the agenda, there was an action item to proceed with the acquisition of the Santa Fe site, but obviously there's going to be some coordinated efforts between Project 180 and MAPS 3 as we decide how that's going to look. But there's a lot of MAPS 3 work yet to happen at the intermodal hub. We may have to make some educated guesses on where that would stand, but I think as we look at the street, we're looking at, again, sidewalks, we're looking at street enhancements, we're going to look at all those things. For the most part, sidewalk to sidewalk, but we're not going to get behind that sidewalk much. That'll be more of a MAPS 3 project.
So the $750,000 federal grant is for what purpose?
It's for the street.
Just any improvement?
It's for streetscape.
For streetscape. Okay.
So we will combine it with other Project 180 funds. The $750 is not enough to complete that project by itself. Generally speaking, the 180 enhancements have cost, with utility relocations included, about $1 million a block.
Okay.
And not all streets are equal, but just generally if you're looking for a general cost. And that's about a 2-block section there of Gaylord from Reno to Sheridan.
And that's just our cost. That doesn't include the utility movements, does it?
The utilities is in that $1 million a block.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, our utility relocations, not OG&Es or ONGs or
No,
Cox's
the
or
private,
anything
it is
others.
not.
So that's what I was referring to.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, it's-
multi-million dollars.
So it's more than $1 million a block when you include the private sector money that comes with it.
You're correct. City costs have been on average about $1 million a block.
Larry?
But just to be clear, for my clarification, when electric lines have to be relocated or gas lines, the utility funds those?
Yes, they have. We have participated in a few instances where we've had critical schedules and we've had to get ahead of them. A lot of times it's better for those utilities. They would like to plan a year or two ahead, but we've had some critical things come up where we've participated in some smaller projects for them.
But for the lion's share, the utilities themselves have paid for their own streets.
Ed?
Can I ask a question of Kathy O'Connor? I just want to ask, one controversy about these kind of TIFs is what happens to the public schools and libraries where maybe the money would have gone, but for these, one thing that I've been surprised to find out is that there are monies available to the schools and presumably libraries that haven't been claimed. Can you talk about that process? What money from maybe the downtown TIF and this TIF?
Sure. In both TIF 2, which is the downtown TIF that was created in about 2001, and in TIF 8, which is the Devon headquarters TIF, the city set aside money in the project plan that was adopted by City Council for the other taxing jurisdictions. And so what that term means is it's money set aside for the other jurisdictions that use property taxes as a part of their operations. So it's the school district, the VOTEC, the library, the city county health department, am I skipping? County, and the county government. And so in the first one, we set aside money in TIF 2 for public schools, public parking, and then other public improvements. There were 3 different categories. In TIF 8, it's all lumped into one category just for the other taxing jurisdictions. And that item isn't, there's an amendment to the project plan for TIF 8 that will be brought before you later, but the process for that requires that we take that amendment to the Planning Commission first. So it will come to the City Council in a few weeks.
But Kathy, those taxing agencies need to spend that money within the boundaries of the original TIF 2 for both TIF 2 and TIF 8.
Right. They need to spend the money in the original project area, which for both the TIF districts is Northwest 13th Street to Southwest 27th, I-235 to Classen. So a pretty big project area. So far, most of the other taxing jurisdictions have not made many requests of that funding. We have worked with the Oklahoma City Public Schools on the downtown elementary school and the VOTEC district on a small project. And I think we worked with Oklahoma City Community College on a small project in Capitol Hill as well.
So roughly how much money in unclaimed funds is there?
We'd
Well,
have to
in
get
TIF
back
8
with you on that. In TIF 8, none of it's been allocated yet because the requirement was that we complete all of the public improvements before we can, or the priority public improvements, which is really a subset.
But we do have a number at this point in time that's anticipated to be available for
Right.
the other taxing agencies, and that's 20?
12 million.
It's 12, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 12 million. Yeah.
And we did also, by the way, on TIF 2, authorize an expenditure for the school district when they were attempting to procure the old Central High School. But that was failed, and so that wasn't used. That was another attempt, another use of those dollars, or allocation of those dollars. It's now been put back.
So perhaps in a future meeting with the school board, we might bring up that $12 million.
Sure.
They were in a meeting of the TIF Review Committee last week when this was discussed.
Okay.
So they know that that money's available.
Oh, and have known that. We've been
And they
in
have,
multiple
yeah.
conversations.
Okay.
All right.
Real quick, Eric, on the completed or under construction, the pedestrian corridor, 833,000, where is that?
I'm sorry.
The pedestrian corridor, where is that?
It's just, can we pull that slide back up, Shannon?
Well, the existing, the dollars that have been spent,
Oh, pedestrian corridor. I'm sorry. I'm thinking, okay.
I
Pedestrian
know where the
corridor.
plaza is, but the pedestrian corridor.
It's in the east garage, second floor. Basically creates a conditioned space for access directly into the Devon building from parking. And from Oklahoma Tower. So it's the second floor. It was built inside the existing garage, so you might not have seen it. I've got a photo I could share, but some of the existing holes were filled in with windows, so it's actually very hard to find unless you see the new glass that was installed into the existing garage on the east side. So it's the east garage, second floor.
Okay. Going into Oklahoma Tower.
yes.